In a quiet and peaceful town, located far from the seashore, an astonishing discovery was made that disturbed the tranquility of its residents. It all began when local builders working on a new plot of land stumbled upon a strange metal structure hidden beneath layers of earth and time. At first, it seemed to be nothing more than an old car or an abandoned vehicle. However, as they began to dig further, it became clear it was a submarine. Confusion and bewilderment quickly spread throughout the area. How could such a massive structure end up hundreds of miles from the nearest coast? Upon receiving news of the discovery, the local authorities immediately arrived at the site to study and understand the scale of the find. Accompanied by a team of archaeologists and historians, they began to investigate the mysterious find. Initial assessments of the submarine's size and construction clearly indicated that it was a military submarine from World War II. This discovery caused a real sensation, as none of the known historical records mentioned such a submarine in this region. The scale of the work increased as more details began to emerge. The city administration decided to temporarily halt construction and preserve the site to allow experts to conduct a thorough examination. The townspeople, who were initially quite skeptical, began to show increasing interest in what was happening. In their excavations, the researchers began to find strange artifacts, metal objects with unusual inscriptions and symbols, which attracted the attention not only of local residents but also of researchers from around the world. How a submarine, full of mysteries and secrets, ended up in the very heart of the city remained a riddle, both intriguing and unsettling at the same time. The dust of the past, mysterious crew documents. When experts began to delve into the depths of the submarine, they discovered not only mechanisms ravaged by time in its dark compartments, but also astonishing finds. In chests isolated from time and dust, sealed away from prying eyes, they found weathered documents and maps. These papers bore the marks of storms and battles endured, yet preserved important information capable of overturning established views of past conflicts. Engineers and historians, leafing through the pages with bated breath, discovered precise route diagrams, ship names, and dates that had never been mentioned in known chronicles. Drawings of ship structures, diagrams of minefields, and coordinates of secret bases emerged from the dusty pages, offering a rare glimpse into the hidden sides of the war. The journals contained records of operations carried out in distant waters, as well as references to intelligence gathered from unknown sources. Each discovery confirmed that the submarine was not just a combat unit, but part of a complex system hidden from the public eye. Experts seized upon these documents, realizing that their contents could change not only the history of the war, but also the fate of many participants in the conflicts. However, the deeper they delved into their research, the more questions arose about why many of these documents had never made it into archives or historical records. The questions multiplied with every page, and this was only the beginning of an intriguing and unsettling mystery that promised more revelations than anyone had anticipated. What was hidden in these archives and how it could have affected our history remained unknown. Through the pages of time, the diaries of the survivors, when the researchers opened the old chests, they discovered something unique: the diaries of the submarine crew. These yellowed pages concealed a true treasure trove of stories and experiences of those who were on the sunken vessel. The entries immersed readers in the tense atmosphere of days filled with danger and uncertainty. The crew described every detail, from the distribution of meager food supplies to complex tactical decisions made under constant threat. One of the diaries contained an account of how the crew tried to maintain contact with the outside world, but all their attempts were in vain. The pages mentioned strange signals they intercepted as they tried to decipher their true meaning. These signals may have indicated the presence of other vessels or secret operations that were never documented. Particularly notable were the entries about the sailors' psychological state. The long stay in a confined space and the need to make difficult decisions in emergency situations became a severe test for everyone. One of the diaries contained an account of strange dreams and visions that crew members experienced. These visions often drove them to desperate actions that, under other circumstances, would have seemed insane. But the most intriguing part is the final section of the diaries, which describes a plan to abandon the submarine and attempts to reach a safe place. These entries remained fragmentary, as if their authors did not have time to finish their last lines. These unfinished stories remain forever captured on the pages, telling of courage and despair in the struggle for survival. With each new fact found in the diaries, the researchers came closer to solving the mystery, but there were still more questions than answers. New discoveries lay ahead, ones that could change history itself. Arsenal inventory. Weapons that changed the course of history. As the researchers continued to study the submarine, their attention was drawn to the fact that there was an entire arsenal in its hold. The weapons hidden here turned out to be not just combat equipment, but a true discovery capable of rewriting history. Among the equipment were long crates laid out lengthwise, containing rare firearms, grenade launchers, as well as mines marked with strange symbols. These markings did not belong to any known army, which only added more mystery to everything that was happening. Local law enforcement officers, watching the arsenal being removed, were shocked by the variety and quantity of weapons. It not only matched the era of World War II, but also contained specimens that were believed to have been destroyed or lost. These discoveries made researchers wonder why this arsenal was never mentioned in historical archives and how it managed to be moved deep into the continent. Some of the weapon samples showed signs indicating their use in unofficial or classified operations. Strange symbols engraved on the metal suggested an origin from laboratories engaged in secret development. Particularly intriguing was the presence of experimental mines that were believed never to have entered mass production. With this discovery, the complexity of the situation only increased. The weapons found may have been used in operations that official history chose to keep silent about. This arsenal not only deepened the mysteries surrounding the submarine, but also forced experts to reconsider the possible secret missions of its crew. As experts tried to decipher the symbols and determine the origin of each item, they had to understand how these war treasures might have played a different role in history. Even darker secrets lay ahead, promising to change our understanding of past events. The Untold Story, a re-examination of the war in the New World. As the investigation of the submarine progressed, more and more questions arose for historians. A grim secret, hidden beneath layers of rust and dust, forced a new perspective on World War II. The discovered documents and arsenal became a catalyst for re-examining historical events that had previously been kept quiet. This entire discovery turned conventional ideas upside down. How could this submarine, full of secrets and weapons, end up in a peaceful town far from the sea? The analysis of the weaponry and mysterious documents found on board cast doubt on the official version of many battles and operations described in textbooks. Experts pored over the documents, searching for new facts that could explain the existence of this submarine on the continent. Particular attention was drawn to previously unknown operations mentioned in the logs, which could have changed the outcome of entire campaigns. Archives, many of which were long thought lost, were now being reopened for study. Every fact examined became part of a new puzzle. This discovery was not just astonishing, it was a challenge to the entire scientific community, urging a reconsideration of the history we had believed to be true. Numerous conferences and roundtables dedicated to studying the mysteries of the submarine attracted the attention of scientists from all over the world. They were about to find out what other surprises this submarine concealed and how they might affect our shared history, offering a new perspective on centuries long past. A shadow over the city, traces of mysterious interference. After the sensational discoveries, the atmosphere in the town began to change rapidly. If at first everything that was happening was seen as a curiosity or an astonishing historical oddity, now there was something unsettling in the air. Residents began to notice strange things, muffled sounds coming from underground at night, mysterious vibrations, and suddenly disappearing communication signals in the excavation area. The researchers who had previously been eager to share their discoveries with the press suddenly became silent. Their faces grew anxious and access to the site was restricted. Unknown individuals began to be spotted at the work site. They wore no distinguishing marks, but their behavior was clearly different from that of ordinary scientists. Their interest was focused not so much on the historical aspect of the find, but rather on the technical and energy-related aspects of the submarine. Some eyewitnesses claimed to have seen these people bringing strange devices into the submarine and staying there for many hours. Rumors began to circulate that mechanisms had been discovered deep inside the submarine that could not be identified. They were neither weapons nor navigation components. Their purpose remained unknown, but judging by the strangers' interest, it was of significance that went beyond ordinary scientific objectives. Moreover, some local residents began to complain about strange dreams, unsettling feelings, and even instances of brief memory loss. Something was happening, and this something no longer resembled an ordinary archaeological investigation. The mystery began to take on the features of a modern conspiracy, and it increasingly seemed that someone had known about the submarine long before its discovery. But if that's the case, then who? Or maybe the answer lies in the strange symbols found on the walls of the compartment that no one has yet dared to enter. A language outside of time, unknown symbols and their deciphering. One of the most mysterious discoveries made inside the submarine was the inscriptions covering the walls of one of the inner compartments. These symbols did not resemble any known writing system. They consisted of complex geometric shapes as if they were created not to be read but to be interpreted in some other way. They had no obvious beginning or end, as if they encoded a message meant not for humans but for something else. The linguists invited to decipher them were initially perplexed. No known language, no alphabet, not even the cipher systems from World War II matched the discovered structures. However, over time it became clear that the symbols repeated. Moreover, they followed a certain order, reminiscent of an algorithm. One of the specialists who worked with quantum code stated that the symbols looked like the architecture of a complex code, possibly not meant to be deciphered in the usual sense, but rather as a triggering mechanism. The most disturbing events began when one of the scientists observing the light passing through the inscriptions noticed that the shadows on the walls started to move, even though the light itself remained still. This anomaly caused a real commotion. It was as if the inscriptions were reacting to presence, to attention, to attempts to understand their meaning. A theory emerged that these were not inscriptions at all, but rather a kind of key. A visual trigger capable of activating something hidden deeper within. Perhaps it was a security system or maybe a mechanism for communicating with something that lies beyond ordinary perception. But who could have left such a trace? And more importantly, for whom? While the scientists argued, an incident occurred that radically changed the entire attitude toward the discovery. The awakening of the steel. An unexpected activation of the mechanisms. What had been considered dead and abandoned for decades suddenly showed signs of activity. It all began with a barely perceptible sound coming from deep within the submarine's hull, then a slight vibration as if someone had turned on a long-forgotten engine. And then a signal. Clear, regular, coming from one of the central chambers. Devices that had long been written off as scrap suddenly came to life. The electricians working nearby swore they hadn't connected any power. The system started up on its own. Strange symbols appeared on the monitors, once considered museum pieces, the very same symbols that had been carved into the walls. Panels flickered, mechanisms moved, and deep echoing clicks and rhythmic thuds sounded through the submarine's hull as if someone had started a countdown. This wasn't just a technical malfunction, it was an awakening. But who or what started it? Those who were inside at the moment of activation spoke of a chilling sensation of being watched, as if the submarine itself had become aware of their presence. The isolated group of specialists tried to shut down the system, but every action they took triggered a new response. New data appeared, other compartments were activated. One of the engineers, upon entering a previously sealed compartment, disappeared without a trace. They simply couldn't find him. The cameras recorded him entering, but he never came out. After that, all access to the vessel was completely cut off. What seemed to be a machine from the past began to show signs of consciousness. A question arose, maybe this isn't just a submarine, but a vault? But what kind? Intelligence, weaponry, or something even more dangerous? The secret of the last voyage. A mission that never happened. While the inexplicability of what was happening was frightening, historians kept digging through the discovered documents and finally stumbled upon something that could explain a lot and at the same time cast doubt on everything we thought we knew. One of the diaries, hidden behind a false panel in the command compartment, contained a report on the submarine's last voyage, but not a single historian or archive had ever mentioned it before. The document was encrypted and it took specialists several days to partially decipher the text. It followed from this that the submarine's mission had nothing to do with naval battles. Its objective was something referred to as the Omega container. No description or specifications of the container were provided. There were only instructions for its transportation, security, and absolute secrecy regarding the operation. Moreover, the entry listed coordinates that matched the location where the submarine was found. This meant that it had arrived there according to plan, not by accident. What had previously seemed absurd, the relocation of a submarine deep into the continent, could have been part of a much larger operation. The journal mentioned contacts with a group designated as the External Observer, whose nature remained unknown. The mission was abruptly interrupted. The final lines of the journal hinted at something that had gotten out of control. The crew split up. Some tried to complete the mission, while others attempted to destroy the object. Since then, the submarine had remained silent until today. But if the Omega container is still on board, what exactly is it?